Hello, and welcome to Khyber Shards, a 5th edition actual play show set in the Eberron campaign world. It's Friday, so we have a Khyber Shards Answers, and today I'm going solo and we're doing an NPC Q&A. If you'd like to submit questions for these, you can do so in comments on our videos, which I always go back and check before we record these, or you can do so in our Discord, the link to which you will find in the description below, along with all of our social media and our merch store. But we have a bunch of questions, and so without further ado, let's dive in. And we're just going to go in the order they were submitted rather than organizing them by anything like that. We had a wealth of questions submitted by Emily, and so we're going to dive into that first. Emily asks, Donabella, do you have a favorite class or teacher? It's really hard to pick. Mr. Fletcher turns into the people that he's teaching us about. And that is really cool, and it makes the class really fun. Shade doesn't really seem like she wants to teach us, but I think the things she's trying to teach us will be really cool if we learn them. So probably one of those. Dane, do you have a favorite animal or an animal you feel a special connection to? And if so, what is it? Not a favorite, not a connection, but I've always liked dogs. Yeah, I had one when I was a little boy, but always been fond for dogs. Lucan, as you've stated before, you work for the king, but do you have an immediate supervisor? Well, I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. Donabella, are you often hanging out with the Rebel Warren gang these days? Not as often as I like, but I still get to go see them, because I go back and I stay with my mom on the weekends, and so I hang out with them then, and I definitely don't sneak out to go on quests. That's really important that you understand. I don't sneak out to go on quests. I definitely don't sneak out to go on quests at all. Thora, if a Vedalus heir, a Cannith heir, and 2 humans with aberrant dragon marks all stood in front of you wearing identical clothes that covered their dragon marks, could you tell which 2 were aberrants and which houses the others belonged to? On first glance, I could tell which were aberrant and which were so-called true marks. Once I had some time to study them and spend some time around them, I could probably pick out the difference between each of their dragon marks. But no, sensing a dragon mark doesn't immediately tell me what house that person belongs to. I can sense that it's a true mark, but it takes me some time and examination. It's more the case that I can tell the aura of an individual dragon mark rather than necessarily knowing what it does. I can tell which mark belongs to which person, so I can sense the difference between Ari's mark and Shade's marks. I couldn't just without study tell you immediately what their marks do. I have noticed that as I've practiced and as I've learned how to control it better over the years, I have been able to tell more about the marks. And proximity helps as well. If I'm closer to a person, I can tell more about their mark than if I'm farther away. And then Emily also asks, can you tell Ari's mark changed in appearance and granted him some sword skills? But would you say it changed in how it registers to its mark, to your mark? Well, that's a difficult question to answer because when I lost my memories of Ari, I lost my memories of how his mark felt. And when he said that poem to me and it restored who he was to me, it didn't restore that. I don't remember what his mark felt like and what the aura of it was like before. So At the moment, I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that. Arabella, what is your favorite part of your job? I work with some very nice people. I work with some good friends of mine. The job itself is somewhat tedious, to be honest. It's not great fun or exciting. It's a good job. It pays well and it allows me to support my daughter. But it's not glamorous. So the people I work with are mostly nice, and I enjoy their company. Jalair, did you enjoy being able to talk to someone other than Esri, and if given the chance, would you speak to the elven girl again? You know what I would like, more than anything else? I would like to have a conversation that isn't someone trying to plumb me for information or insult me. Because as yet, since reawakening in this century, the only people who have spoken to me have either demanded information from me or insulted me. The closest thing I've had to a conversation is Esri reading books to me, which is barely a conversation. So what I would like, more than anything else, is an actual conversation. Because so far I haven't had one. Arabella, how do you think your late husband would have felt about Donabella's mark and her attending Grimalkin Academy? I think he would have been frightened, like I would have, for her, like I was. I don't know. We both shared a lot of the thoughts about what aberrant marks were. And to be honest, I'm not entirely convinced we're wrong. Aberrant marks can be very dangerous. But, and I do worry. I know not everyone controls their mark well, and I worry about her at the school. Not because I mistrust the people there, but if something goes wrong, I think he'd have been worried about the school, because he would worry about what would happen. Will the school become a target? I don't know the answer, and neither would he, but it wouldn't have changed how he felt about her. But I think he would have been frightened for her, like I am. Arlo, how are you enjoying teaching at the Grimalkin Academy? Well, it's a rather more, I guess I should say, rather less structured environment than my old position, to say the least. And there's some pleasure in working in a more freewheeling environment. I am, I suppose, in a position of higher authority than I was before, in that I am the only person on staff with any educational qualifications at the moment. On the other hand, my life has already been threatened several times in working here, and that didn't used to happen at my job, so I don't love that part. But the independence and the freedom to teach how and what I wish is very pleasant. So it's got its ups and downs, I suppose, as any job does. Thora, would you say the school year is going better, worse, or about the same as you expected it to? Well, we didn't make it 24 hours without the school being attacked by a monster that threatened the lives of the students. So, worse, on the whole. Yeah, I would say it's not gone great. Also, I only managed to acquire 5 students for the school, and I had rather hoped that we'd manage to get a bit more than that. But here we are. So we make do with what we can, and we soldier on, and we hope that we can get through the rest of the year without the students' lives being in danger again. Right. Nathan asks, the White Raven, if you hadn't been blinded by some unknown person's intervention or interference, would you have won the duel against Talis? Of course I would have won. All that flailing about with his sword and flourishing, like he was on display or on a stage or something like that, was entirely unnecessary and it was pointless. He was going to get himself killed. Of course I would have won. Now, had I known someone was going to blind me, some third party not involved in the duel was going to blind me, I might have prepared myself slightly differently, and should I find out who it was that intervened and endangered my life in that way, I will have my retribution. But, barring that intervention, yes, I would have defeated him, certainly. Emily asks, Tommel, what's your favorite way to kill someone? I don't have a favorite way to kill someone. I don't kill people as a game. I kill people because I must, or because they deserve it. I've never killed anyone who didn't endanger me, my people, who wasn't my enemy. And I don't play around with it. When I kill someone, I kill them. When I kill, I most often kill with my mark. But when I kill, it's not a game, and I'm not looking for my favorite way to do it. I just kill. River, how's learning to speak common going? I am learning many new words, but it's very slow because common doesn't have a music the way my speech does. I always expect things to have a meter or a flow to them, a rhythm. That's what it is, music. And the way most people speak doesn't have that. And so I still like speaking Sylvan more than common. Avia, what is a good quality for someone who wants to date you to have? Fond of animals due to my work. Well-read. I like to talk about books. Intelligent. Making it through an entire conversation before asking me on a date. Marissa and Teodoro, under what circumstances did each of you manifest your marks and join the Children of Khyber? Marissa, I manifested mine in battle. Late in the war, my lance was riding for Breland against Karnath. We were cut off and overrun by their vile undead. I only survived because my mark activated and I was able to carve my way out and flee. But I was the only survivor. I knew that my mark changed me, and I did not go back. I made my way to Breland and worked as hired muscle is the term for gangs in the city of Sharn until the son of Khyber found me. And he showed me that there could still be purpose. That I could still honor my ancestors, although this had changed who I was. Teodoro, well, see, there I was, deep in the jungles of southern Breland. A ghost tiger just ahead of me. Now, hunting the king's ghost tigers is not legal. And so, but the problem is, if you're going to hunt anything in the forest, you must be prepared to encounter one. So, there I am, hunting in the forest when a ghost tiger approaches. Killing it is illegal if it's not threatening me. But once a ghost tiger begins to threaten you, it is rather too late. So, I just held very, very still, and it's walking towards me, foot by foot, those terrible claws raking the ground, its long snarl, and I think to myself, it's now or never, but I'm just, to be perfectly honest, entirely petrified with fear. I am not much more than a mouthful for one of those great beasts. It came to me no closer, no farther than I am from you. And I realized that it didn't see me. It didn't sense me. It was standing right in front of me, and I was not invisible, but I seemed to be invisible to it. And then it moved on. And I changed my pants and discovered that my mark allowed me to mask my presence from detection. Not through invisibility, but through... well, I still don't quite know how it works, but it seems that what I do is I'm blanking out my presence from their mind, their inability to just comprehend that I am near them. And that saved my life. Now, how did I meet good old Dane? Now, well, hunting without permission in the king's forest, even when it is to feed yourself, and even when you are carefully avoiding hunting any of the protected animals of the king's reserve, turns out is somewhat more illegal than one might think, and I found myself in, well, not exactly a dungeon, but locked up. And it just so happened that I was locked up in a cell next to none other than good old Dane. We began talking, we learned what each of us could do, and so Dane smashed his way out of the cells, smashed open mine, I blanked us from the minds of the guards, and we walked out right under their noses. It's a good time, Dane. I'm glad to be along for the ride. The crusade he believes in, maybe. But I think it's unlikely we bring down the dragon-marked houses, but working with him, I've done some good for people. I've helped and repaid my debt I owe him, and now we're friends. So I go along when he asks. Arabella, how did you meet your husband? Oh, well, I suppose the war brought us together to some degree. When the war started, my family moved west to get away from the fighting. Western Breland was quiet at the time. Obviously, it didn't end that way, but when I was younger, it was quiet. And we ended up living quite near a Vadalis ranch where my husband worked. And I used to go out and watch the hippogriffs. And one day Aiden invited me for a ride, and offered to let me meet some of the animals. I think he wasn't supposed to. Knowing what I do now, I'm fairly certain he wasn't supposed to, but he started giving me riding lessons. Not flying animals at first, of course, but I had lived in the cities, and so learning to interact with animals that way, it was magical to me. Well, being of that age, we fell in love. I think he disappointed a lot of people when he married me, but he never disappointed me. Thora, does Dragon Mark have any abilities beyond detecting Dragon Marks? Right, well, I can obscure myself using darkness. That seems to come from the mark as well. That's the primary thing. As I said before, I'm starting to notice that I can detect a little bit more about Dragon Marks than I used to be able to, but I haven't seen quite how far that can go yet. Arabella, any favorite memories of Donabella when she was younger? The first time Aiden took her up on a hippogriff. She was much too young. I was absolutely terrified. I stood there on the ground watching the whole time. They're not entirely tame, even the ones that Fatalist raises from young, but I knew him, and he knew the animals. She was screeching with delight when they came down. That night I found her in the stables, curled up. She jammed herself up under the wing of one of them. That's always stayed with me. Thora, aside from the initial pain, what's the worst part of having had your mark burned off your face? Well, the pain lasts quite a long time with a burn of that sort, and I'm permanently scarred across half my face. I don't hear very well out of that ear anymore. I don't see very well out of that eye anymore. For a long time, I didn't actually know whether the mark would come back. When it did, it was a surprise to me. It was like manifesting all over again. It hurt. A lot of things. Honestly, the initial pain might have been the least bad part of it, to be quite honest. Laura asks, the White Raven, do you always feel the need to make up for losing a fight by starting a duel with someone else? I did not pick that fight. He insulted me. He opened the conversation by insulting me and then picked at that again and again throughout the conversation. I forbore as long as I could. But there is only so much insult that a man ought to bear without satisfaction. So, I do not pick fights unnecessarily. And the one that you refer to was offered to avenge the insult he had done to me. Now, I wasn't actually interested in killing him, but I don't fight for fun, and I don't fight for coin, and I don't fight for an audience. Tommel, what were your parents like? Is there anyone back home that you miss other than your bird? Got any siblings? I don't know if I have any siblings. Elves live a very long time, so it's entirely possible that my parents have had children since then. My mother was a druid, followed a druidic ancestor. She was kind enough. They were focused. They were very focused. We were at war. We were participating in the war. That's what they all did. That's what all the people of Valinor did. That's what I'd have done. had I the option. They were good parents. They took care of me and cared for me as long as I didn't have the mark. And then the moment I had the mark, I was cursed, and there it was. No one from back home batted an eye when I was cast out, so no, I don't miss them. Ilya, what were you working on when Shade came to visit? I was tooling a belt. Just decorating the belt I wear. Avia, do you have any exciting Vadalus pets for yourself? Oh, I can't afford a mage-bred pet. No, I don't get paid enough for that. But I get to take care of and raise and train griffins, so I get plenty of animal time. Rebel Warren gang, how's it been without Donabella? Right, because we are definitely not sneaking her out of the school as a quest. We miss her, and don't sneak onto the school grounds to see her. We don't do that. So we miss seeing Donabella. Harish, are your cats okay? Every single one? The cats are just fine. River, what's talking to the trees like? It's like, what is the word? It's like breathing. Yeah, that's the word. Hallis, you okay, bud? Of course, I'm just fine. Whatever could you mean? And finally, Donabella, who do you think would win in a fight? Your classmates or the Rebel Warren gang? Let's assume that it's neutral territory, so neither gets the home team advantage, and you have to be an impartial observer in this fight, so you can't jump in to help either side. I mean, I like the people at the school, but you gotta, understand, they would lose in a fight. I mean, Kara wouldn't even fight. She'd just sit there and like make fun of us or something for fighting and talk about how stupid and boring it is. Nisaria would run and tell the grown-ups. So Mo and Pip would really be the only ones who are fighting, and Bajak is like as big as Mo and Pip stacked on top of each other, and Ilya is scary. So the Rebel Warren gang would win, and that would be a quest. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you all so much for the questions. We really enjoy getting them. As mentioned before, you can submit questions in comments or over on our Discord. And until next time, thanks for rolling with us.